When I posted about this huge coffee table I designed for our new house, I got so many messages on Instagram asking if it was for sale. Since I'm making an identical coffee table for my mom for Christmas, I decided this time I would actually record the process. Keep watching to see how we made it. Because there was so much interest in my table, I figured I would share with you the exact way that we built it. Our table is holding up great and we absolutely love it. Before building this or any other coffee table, make sure you measure your space first. Here are some tips that I kept in mind when designing this coffee table for my formal living room. If you just want to keep it simple, you can replicate this coffee table exactly by following all of my cuts that I'll include in the description box below. Or you can customize it by shortening the length of the coffee table or shortening the legs so the coffee table sits lower to the ground. We've got all of our wood ready to go for the top of the coffee table. That's what we're going to be doing today, and we're going to be doing the legs of the coffee table tomorrow. So for today, for the top of the coffee table, we are first putting a clean edge on all of our pieces of wood. Then we're going to measure them to the appropriate size. You can find my cut list in the description box below, and then we're going to cut the other end. We are using a piece of scrap wood as a jig to pre-drill on the 1x12s. So we've decided which 3 1x12s will be the top of the table, and we're just pre-drilling to create boxes. Basically, it's going to be 3 boxes installed together. That's going to be the top of the table. So using this little jig to pre-drill, and we're doing about 4 or 5 holes per side. A tip is to choose which side of the board you want facing outward. There is always a prettier side, so I just make sure we determine which side is the prettier side that will be obviously visible. Here are the 3 top boards. We've pre-drilled them, getting ready to assemble them. And now we are pre-drilling the 3 bottom boards. So we're just doing the same thing with these bottom pieces of wood. We're deciding which side is going to be the bottom of the bottom, or like the visible side of the bottom. We just zipped in the trim head screws on one of these bottom boards. This is actually going to be the middle box of the 3 boxes that make up the top of the coffee table. So we're going to grab some side boards and assemble the sides on this one so you can see what the system is here. We're in the process of installing one of the 1x8s as a sideboard to the bottom board here, this 1x12. And what we're doing is grabbing a piece of scrap wood, using that as a jig to make sure that when we install this sideboard, there's going to be room for our little cork that we install at the very end. So I'm going to use this jig and push that sideboard up to it before zipping it in. So now we have the sideboard screwed in to the bottom board. This is basically half of a box here. And you can see there's room right there to add the cork at the end. You'll know what I'm talking about when we get there. And that looks like that on both sides. So we left a little room on each end. We've got 3 sides of the middle box all installed together using trim head screws. And maybe you can see a little bit better now that there's room on the end for the final end piece that's going to go on. This is the middle box. So next we are going to close off the top, and it'll be a full and complete box, and then we'll start on the outer 2 boxes. We have the center box all installed, and then we are going to build the outer 2 boxes, 3 sides of those outer 2 boxes, and then we're going to hook them together. We have 2 of the boxes. That's the middle box. That's one of the side boxes. And you can see we left the side off of the side boxes so that we can come in here with our drill. We're going to be adding a bunch of trim head screws, which is going to hold these together. And this on the bottom here is actually going to be the top of the coffee table. I have them flipped over so gravity is working in our favor so that when we install them, they're perfectly flush on top. When we go to install the legs, we might have to do a little bit of a shim in some places to make sure that they're even, but the most important thing is the table top. wanted to show you side view after we got a couple of the screws in there. I mean, it's really straight. We're not carpenters. Obviously, this is not the right way to do this, but it definitely works for us. We got this other side zipped in. So again, this is the tabletop down here, which is nice and flush. This we can adjust. So we'll probably zip this screw out at the end in order to put our little cork in here so it looks like it's perfect, even though it's not. But yeah, it's all together. It's really sturdy. We're gonna add the side on here, and then we're gonna add the other box on this side. The middle and one side is completely attached now. We got the side piece installed as well, and now we're gonna add on the third box. So here is the tabletop. Again, this is the bottom and this is the top, so we're using gravity in our favor to make sure that the top is perfectly level. And then I don't think I have enough wood. We're gonna have to go back to Lowe's or Home Depot and get some more wood to cork this guy off. After we cork it, we will wood fill and sand and wood condition and stain the tabletop. And then tomorrow we will do the legs. Now that it's all assembled, I'm gonna grab my measuring tape and just measure the distance from here to here. And we're gonna cut a 1x8 to fit in that opening so that it just like corks off the ends of the table. So we're gonna cut 2 and get those installed. The tabletop has been assembled and we wood filled behind the trim head screws with stainable wood filler. I'm just about to sand it. I'm using 100 grit, and then I'm going to vacuum it all up, wipe it all down, wood condition, and stain.
This is before sanding and after sanding. So you can see it just makes it nice and smooth and takes all of that yellow off, preps it for staining. Looks so much better. And then as I'm going around with my sander, I like to soften the edges and kind of bang them up a little bit with my sander. I like the way that looks. I feel like this is a really modern looking coffee table, but that kind of gives it a little bit of a rustic element. So I do that on all of the edges of the table. The table is all sanded and ready for wood conditioner, so I'm going to apply that pretty liberally all over and let that dry for a couple hours. Then I'm going to come in with classic gray wood stain. I'm going to do just a normal coat and wipe it off as I go. And then once that's dry, I'll do a thin coat of briar smoke.
Here is the table with the classic gray stain and briar smoke on top. It's really pretty. It's just too gray for my mom's house. It's actually a little bit too gray even for my house, and my floors have more gray than her floors do. So I brought it inside so I could see it next to my coffee table, and definitely I think this one is just too gray. So I'm going out to Lowe's. I'm gonna grab some Early American stain. I think that one is like a neutral enough medium brown tone that I can just put over top of what we have going on here, and it should hopefully warm it up just enough. So after adding the third coat of stain, which was Early American, I noticed about 12 hours later that it was still really tacky. I looked it up and was able to fix it, thank goodness. So I added a 4th coat of stain of Early American, left that on for 3 minutes, and really aggressively wiped all of the stain residue off, and it took off the tackiness. That's a cool trick. If you have stain that didn't seep in and you didn't wipe it off well enough in time, you can add another coat of stain, let it sit for 3 minutes, and then remove all of that tacky residue.
We have cut all the pieces for our legs. I'll include the dimensions of all of our cuts in the description box below. So these short little pieces are going to be like the left and right pieces of the legs. They're going to be visible, so it's really important that those have a good sanding and they're wood filled so that when I prime and paint them, they actually look like metal legs. These are the top and bottom pieces of the legs, so I've divided them into 2 categories. So these ones will be visible because they're going to be on the bottom. Just like that. So the top and sides will be visible. They really need to be nice and smooth, so again, they look like metal legs. These ones I'm going to be using as the top of the legs because they are the ugliest pieces. It's hard to see here, but they're really textured, they're really dinged up, And it would be harder on these to get a metal-like finish because they just have more character than the other two pieces. So these are going to be the top pieces of the legs. Since they're going to be right under the coffee table, you're not even really going to see them.
Sanded them, wood filled them. The trick with making wooden legs look like metal is getting a really good sanded finish and then wood filling all of the beautiful wood character away so that you get a really nice smooth finish. So once this dries, I'm going to sand them again and then prime them and paint them. I've sanded all the wood filler and this is kind of what you're left with. Wood filler remains where all of the holes were, so that after I prime and paint, it'll look nice and smooth. And just pre-drilled the side pieces. As you can see, we've got the trim head screws ready to go in there. So I'm going to hold the pieces together while he drills the trim head screws into the corner of each piece. And we're not using any wood glue. We didn't use wood glue last time. We got both sides zipped in to the bottom, looking real good. Now we're gonna take the top piece and zip that in. I have to adjust it, but basically that's the gist, and that's one of the two legs. Got the table legs assembled. Now I'm going to wood fill all of the visible screw holes and wait for that to dry, and then I'll sand it, do 2 coats of primer, and then paint them black. Got one leg primed. This one, the wood filler just dried, so I sanded it. That's kind of what we're left with. Now I'm gonna prime this one, and then once that's dry, I'm gonna paint them.
This is the primer that I use, Benjamin Moore Sure Seal, and I get it tinted because most of the time I'm painting things black, so it's better to have a little bit of a darker primer. So this is the flat black paint that I love. I've done the legs on my sofa table and coffee table in this color. I've also done an accent wall in this color. It's just a really good neutral black. I get it at Lowe's. There is the label if you need to refer back to it, and I will put this in the description box as well.
So you can see what you...
One leg painted with 1 coat of black paint, so now that's drying. I am gonna do a 2nd coat of paint on both of the legs. The table legs are painted and dried. Now we are ready to attach them to the tabletop. We have flipped the tabletop over on our sawhorses, and we're measuring where we want the legs attached. I'm just marking 3 inches in from one edge and 7.5 inches in from the other edge. I'm marking all the way across the table so I know where the table legs need to be installed, and then we'll get them screwed in. So these trim head screw holes underneath the table, I'm not gonna wood fill them and paint them because they're not gonna be seen. Obviously you can see the bottom of the table is also not stained because it's not gonna be seen. I really don't care. So we're gonna leave that like that. We did 2 screws on the outside boards and then 1 screw in the middle. For the legs, installing them to the table, we're using longer trim head screws because it gets all the way through the wood. So that's the size on these trim head screws if you wanna get exactly the same ones. Here is the finished coffee table for my mom. It looks amazing. Obviously it's pretty much identical to the coffee table I made originally for myself, which is right over there. They're exactly the same, except I would say the stain came out a lot smoother and even on this one. I saturated the wood a lot more, even though I made it too gray and had to add a coat of Early American at the end. That did the trick and it warmed it all up, and actually the stain looks great. It's really even and just really pretty. Here she is in her new home. This coffee table fits my mom's living room beautifully. Follow along with my current projects on Instagram at Amanda Fallon Homes, and if you decide to try this project, of course, tag me in your photos because I want to see. If you like the way the matching sofa table looks, I do have a video for that also, and I'll include it in the description box below. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos just like this one.